Hey guys, Joe Miles here with Osseo Gear. This is the Mission Whitetail Podcast. We're going to be doing a deep dive into what it truly takes to kill these mature bucks. We're going to step outside the box and look at the why for gear, tactics, training, and more importantly, the mindset from over 35 years of chasing these magnificent animals all over North America. Thank you for following along and welcome to Mission Whitetail.
Guys, welcome back. Mission Whitetail episode number 84. Have got Andrew and Wells in the studio today. We are going to talk everything Africa. I realize this is the Mission Whitetail podcast, and I will land the plane on this, but there are some major similarities between hunting a leopard, and specifically the leopard I just hunted, and hunting a highly pressured whitetail, a big, mature, highly pressured whitetail. I'm going to set the stage. I just got back from Zimbabwe, and I want to talk about kind of the area that I hunted and a little bit of history. I worked in Africa for 7 years as an apprentice and then an actual licensed professional hunter. And still to this day, an outfitter. We do quite a bit over there, and it is one of my favorite places to hunt. It's just an amazing country. The sunrises, the sunsets, the sky, all the different animals, the service, the food. I mean, just on and on and on. It's just an unbelievable country, and I look forward to going every year, and hopefully one of these days I can get back to spending a lot more time over there because I love it that much. But where I was hunting, it was in southwest Zimbabwe, flew into Bulawayo, and if you're looking at a map, you go southwest towards the Botswana border, and I was about 20 miles from the Botswana border. And the reason for that is it is major cattle country. And in that cattle country, you have human-animal conflict. And it really is an example of what conservation has done to save the leopard population in that area. The cattle farmers obviously have trouble with the leopards coming in and eating their cows. And so every cow they lose is money out of their pocket. So before the safari industry really came into that area and started conservation, the farmers and ranchers were poisoning, trapping, killing every leopard they could, and basically driving them out of the area. There used to be lion in that area, and they've completely eradicated them. They're completely gone, but the leopard has been saved. And the interesting thing about this area, it's a very low game density area, meaning it's not like your own safari where you're seeing elephants and a lot of plains game and Cape buffalo and kudu and all these different animals. I mean, I was there in camp for 19 days, and I saw probably 5 different herds of impala, 1 herd of zebra. And what the leopards are eating are the impala, the cows, and these things called rock rabbits, or they're really a rock hyrax is what they're called, but they look like a groundhog, but they call them a rock rabbit or a dassie. And the way that conservation has worked there, I kind of got off topic there for a second. The way the conservation has worked is the safari outfitters have gone into the area and said, look, we will come into your ranch and pay you X number of dollars to not exterminate the leopard, and in return, we'll sell these safaris to international hunters, if you will. And the rancher has just done the math. You know, I'm losing 20 cows a year at $500 a cow. It's $10,000. I can have 3 leopard hunters coming here, and I end up making money. So yes, that makes a lot of sense. So in fact, they have stopped trying to eradicate the leopards, and the leopards have done very well in the area. And the thing about this area is the genetics there are incredible. There are monster leopards, big heads. You know, a lot of these cats are over 160, 170 pounds, and just world-class cats. The issue, I guess, is they're highly, highly educated. If any of you guys that enjoy reading, and especially stuff about Africa, there's a book called Into the Thorns by Wayne Michael Grant, and it's all about hunting leopards in the Matobo Hills, and that's exactly where we were. And like a couple of the rivers that they're dry now, but a couple of the river systems that we were driving in and driving over are described in great detail in this book. And literally several of the leopards they hunted were in this area. So a lot of good history there. So again, the name of the book is Into the Thorns by Wayne Michael Grant, and it's hunting the cattle-killing leopards of the Matobo Hills. Great, great book. Highly recommended. So I'm just going to kind of go through the hunt. Like I mentioned earlier, the cats here are very, very clever. I don't know any other way to put it. They're very suspicious. They're masters of their environment. And I've hunted leopard, especially with clients in Mozambique, Tanzania, Zambia, and it was a pretty simple process. You know, we'd go in and we'd hang baits. Once we had a leopard feeding, we'd build a blind 50 yards away, sit in the blind, and 9 times out of 10, within 2 or 3 days, the leopard would come in, we'd shoot the cat. Well, that's not how it works here. I'm just going to kind of go through how we hunted, how we set up everything, and then the mistakes we made, and then relate that back to how that can help us as whitetail hunters. You know, we always talk about attention to details and the small things that can really hurt you. But basically, when I got there, we went to the local rancher and got 2 of his cows and butchered those cows and cut them into quarters. We paid him for the cows, cut them into quarters, and then went out and hung 8 different baits. I'd also gotten another one before I got there that was already hung. So we had basically in 2 days, we had 12 baits set up, ready to go. And what I had always done in the past is used wire to wire the bait into the tree. And the reason you do that is because the leopard then can't rip it out of the tree and take off and leave. Well, here they don't like to use wire on the baits because the leopards have learned that the wire equals snare, because a lot of them had gotten snared, so they'll shy away from that. So we use some natural fiber rope and would actually tie the bait into the tree instead of wire it in there. And all of the baits that we had were set up for the leopard to feed off the ground. You know, a lot of you guys that follow Africa stuff have seen the cats, you know, how they jump up in trees and the bait is up in the tree. Well, here, he wanted to make it really, really easy for the leopard to feed. There are not a lot of hyenas in the area, but there are some, and there aren't any lions, so there's no fear of a lion ripping the bait out of the tree. So you were able to hang the bait high enough that the hyenas really couldn't get it, but low enough where the leopard could get it. But I'm going to get into that. So for the first 2 days, once we got the baits hung, in the mornings, we'd get up about 7 o'clock, right at daylight, have breakfast, and then we would drive out and check all the baits to see if we had anything feeding. And first morning after getting all the baits hung, drove out and nothing had fed. The second morning we drove out, the last bait we checked not only had been hit, but was completely gone. And we didn't really know what had happened. There were hyena tracks there, and there were leopard tracks there, and a giant leopard track, to the point that this was the cat that I had come all the way to Zimbabwe to hunt big track. Luckily, we had trail cameras on the bait, pulled the trail camera, and what had happened, a brown hyena had come in and ripped the bait out of the tree. So, attention to detail, right? We had hung the bait just a little bit too low, and the hyena was able to get his full force on it, and he ripped the bait out of the tree and left with it. And then on the trail camera, later in the night, the leopard had come in. So that was a pretty big mess up on our part, for the fact that if that bait had still been there, that leopard would have fed and we'd have had a crack at him. So the leopard stayed around for a pretty good while, and we decided to go ahead and make a blind and start sitting in that spot because the cat had come in there. And so we replaced the bait with another quarter of a cow. We moved it from one spot to that one. And one thing I left out, which is pretty darn interesting, is that when you hang these baits, you take a lot of the stomach, the guts, and you make a big drag, and you drag from the bait like a mile up different roads or down a dry riverbed and make like a big figure eight or a big circle and come back to the bait. So the trackers would do that while we were prepping stuff, and it really helps with the scent because the country is so big that when these leopards travel, they'll travel miles and miles and miles at night. They hit one of these drags and they'll come right into the bait. So we build the blind, and like I mentioned earlier, the way I had always hunted leopard was by, you'd get downwind of the bait, you'd look at the tracks and see how the leopard had come into the bait, how the leopard had left. Normally they'll do the same thing coming back. Well, here they've gotten so clever over time that before they come into a bait, they'll do a 360-degree circle around it and scent check everything before they come in. So how do you think you counter that? Pretty ingenious method that the guy I was hunting with, Bruce, has come up with, and other professional hunters as well. And it's talked about some in this book I was talking about, Into the Thorns. You do a double blind set. So you set up a blind, depending on wind and cover, anywhere from 40 yards to 100 yards away from the bait. And the back of the blind is open, and you already have your rifle positioned in there. It's dead silent. And what you do is you go about 200 to 300 yards behind that, and you set up a spot where you can sleep, and then you clear a path. It's literally like a 3-foot wide path that's like a beach. It is just sand from that sleeping spot all the way into the blind. And then when the cat gets in there and starts feeding, then you walk up, you sneak up down that path into the shooting blind. The cat's already on the bait, you've got the wind direction right, and you can make your shot. The question is, how do you know the cat's on the bait? And that's a really good question. They use motion sensors. You're talking about next level. And, simple, like, guys have alarms in their house and they have motion sensors, or like in your driveway, if a car comes in, a motion sensor will ding something in the house. Well, it's basically a mobile motion sensor that works like 300 yards away, and you hang that thing at the bait. So if the bait moves, it sends the signal to the little machine that makes the doorbell sound, and we've got that in our sleeping area, and it just goes dong ding. Did I make that sound right, Andrew? Did that sound right? Dong ding. It sounds like a doorbell, but it's obviously on the sound is cut way down. So pretty neat. Technology, has evolved. The way they used to do it is they would tie fishing line, real heavy, like 100-pound braid, from the bait all the way back to the sleeping blind, like 300 yards away, and they would tie it to a stick like a fishing rod, and then have like a piece of white bone on top of it. So when the bait started moving, the fishing line would move, and you would see the bone in the darkness. You could see the white bone moving, and that's how they used to do it. And some PHs probably still do, but now with technology, you can use that motion sensor. And when that thing, you're in the blind. We would get in the blind from 4:30 in the morning. From 4:30 in the afternoon to 7:30 in the morning. And basically, once it got dark, I would read a book until it got dark. And then you try to go into a light sleep, and you're just basically looking at the sensor for 12 hours, hoping that it goes, how'd it sound, Andrew? Ding dong. So that is a pretty neat setup, and how you combat that leopard that makes that big loop all the way around. And it works. We saw it multiple mornings when the leopard would have fed. We would go back and follow his tracks, and you would see the loop that he made, and it was normally within like 100, 120 yards of the bait. He would do a full circle around it and then come in. So this is a system that really works. We had a couple issues with it where the technology actually failed us, and as we know as whitetail hunters, relying on trail cameras and technology can absolutely bite you in the butt. The first time it bit us in the butt, we were in the blind, like I said, from 4:30 in the morning. I said that again, 4:30 in the afternoon to 7:30 in the morning. The sensor never went off. We got up at 7:30, had to walk up to the front blind to get my rifle, because I would leave my rifle in there ready to go. And the PH had his rifle in the blind with us in case we had any issues, but my rifle was already set up and ready to go, so it wasn't any fumbling around or making any noise. I could literally walk up to it. We had it on a tripod with a sandbag, and it was right on the bait, ready to go. I just got up to the stock, looked through the scope, and I could shoot. And I go up there to get my rifle, because that was kind of the path that we repeated every morning, or the system. We would get up, the trackers would drive up to us, come to our sleeping area. I'd walk up and get my rifle. Well, I go up to get my rifle, and I look at the bait through a little peephole, and it had absolutely been destroyed, and we had no idea. So we walk in, and the sensor either was not put in the right position, or moved, or something climbed up in that tree and moved it. And so it didn't register the whole night. Pulled the trail camera, and the big cat had been in there and fed for like 2.5, 3 hours. If it had just beat one time, we could have come right in there and gotten him, but it didn't, and he ate for 2.5, 3 hours. And when they do that, a lot of times it can be days before they come back and feed again, because they've eaten so much. So 2 times we had chances, and we've blown it. We've made, I guess you could call it, careless mistakes with the bait being hung too low for the hyena carrying it off, And then this time, not triple checking before we got in the blind that the sensor was on the bait. Now, if something climbed up in the tree and bumped it, nothing you could do about that. But what we did is we added a second sensor on 2 different trees. And I guess now we're going into like day 12 of the hunt. We've had 2 chances at him. Day 12, we're in the blind. 3 o'clock in the morning, kind of in a half sleep, I hear ding dong. Was that good, Andrew? Yeah, perfect, good. And I mean, obviously, a shot of adrenaline goes through you like you can't imagine. We both sat up. We get our stuff together. I'm in stocking feet. We got socks on my feet, so he does as well, so that we don't make any noise walking in on this path. And we walk up to the blind. He's got a thermal, and he looks through it, and the cat is walking off. And I'm on my rifle waiting for him to come back, and the cat never comes back. He's gone. We sat there for about 20 minutes, completely dead still, not a sound, nothing. So we sneak back to the blind, the sleeping blind, and pull the camera the next morning. And a couple of the trail cameras had low glow red lights. And you can see this cat feeding, he had it on video, feeding on the bait, and the camera goes off, and it's like on a 30-second video. The leopard sits down, looks over at the camera, sees, we think, the red light, and he slowly backs up, just like a big buck will do, and he's out of there. So this is day 12, and I've got 20 days to hunt, but he's gone. He didn't eat from the time that bell went off to the time he left was probably 4 minutes, 5 minutes, and he didn't eat anything. We sat there for another 2 nights, didn't come back, and we thought, man, we had anticipated getting 2 shots at this cat, 2 chances, and we didn't think it was going to happen. So we completely reset. We got another cow, butchered it. I'd shot a couple Impala. So we reset baits, kind of spread our web back out, looking for his track. And we're continuing to sleep in the blind. Let's call it 16 or 17. And you got to remember, this is 14 nights in a row in the blind from 4:30 in the afternoon to 7:30 in the morning. So you get about 3 or 4 hours of half sleep, and then you're checking baits, hanging baits all day, and then you get about an hour nap from about 3 to 4, and then you're off to the blind. So it's a real mental drain, a lot like the mental drain of the grind of the rut. Very, very similar. And 16, 17, 18, 19. So I guess 17. Yeah. So day 17 of the hunt, we're checking baits, and sure enough, he's hit another bait that's a completely different part of the property, of the hunting concession that we're on. But we're back in the game. Trail camera pictures of him. It's the big cat. He fed, and he was actually with a female, which was really good, because those females will have these bigger males very relaxed, because 9 times out of 10, the female will come in first and start feeding, and then the male will come in after, a lot like a food plot, right? Does come out into the food plot, buck comes to the edge, sees the does feeding, a lot more relaxed to come out there with other deer. So excited about that. Got the blind all set up, ready to go. And get in there the first night, the whole time, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, no sensor goes off, nothing. So completely thinking the sensor isn't working. Go up there the next morning, nothing. I mean, the female came in and fed, and the male had come in and fed, and now I'm going, all right, we disturbed it too much, building these blinds, and they smelled us, and they're not coming back. This is about impossible. The next night, the female came in, but the male did not. We're like, okay, well, at least the female came back, so maybe they didn't smell us. And night 19, I sent Natalie, my wife, a message. I would get good Wi-Fi or good service. I'd get in. He had a phone that I could get into a hotspot and send a message out about every 3 or 4 days. And I sent her a message. I was going to extend the hunt 5 more days. And night 19, we're in the blind, 11:20, the sensor goes off. Sat up. Obviously, the adrenaline is through the roof. Get everything together. Out the blind we go, and it's up in some rocks. They have these, what they call copies, which are like these little rock mountains that maybe some of them are 1,000 feet high, but we're right on the edge of one of those. And we have to kind of, the path leads up through the rocks, and then the bait is down off of those rocks, so we're a little bit elevated. And we get to about 20 yards from the bait, and I can hear him crushing and crunching bones. There's like a rib cage on this Impala that we've hung there, and it's the whole front quarter of the Impala, and I think there was some a leftover cow bait in there as well. And I can hear the bones crunching as I'm walking up there, and it's pitch black dark. And get on my rifle, and I can see the bait, and I can see the cat. And I get prepared to shoot him, but he's swinging back and forth on the bait. And finally, he stops completely still, standing on his back feet, slightly quartering away, and I shoot him right down through the armpit, through the other side of the shoulder, and he just crumples and falls dead right there. And that was really it was a relief, but that's when I got nervous. I was so concerned about making a good shot, because a wounded leopard is a terrible thing, and I've never really shot at night before. So you guys that are right, and I do sheep, goats, dangerous game. I rifle hunt those. Everything else I bow hunt. So I don't shoot a rifle a ton. And when you get on a rifle and you're looking through a scope, if you don't have your head right, the scope can be black. Your sight window can be fuzzy. You can only see half the scope, part of the scope, all the scope, if you don't have your head position right. So I can't tell you the number of times that I would just go up to my rifle with my eyes closed, get my cheek well, lean my hat down till it hit an exact spot, and then open my eye and make sure that I got a full sight picture, because I was going to be doing this in the dark. And it all did work out. I got the cat. He's an absolute monster. We guessed him. We didn't have a scale, but he's definitely north of that 170-pound range, and just a tremendous, tremendous cat. Exactly what we were after. Before I left, I told the guys, I was like, man, I can't imagine this being a 3-week hunt. I think I'll be back in a couple weeks. And we literally, day 19 of a 20-day hunt, got him. And like I said, I had texted Natalie to extend the hunt, and luckily I was able to get another message out to her and get it back on my original flight home. But pretty exciting. I mean, it is absolutely right there with hunting a big mature whitetail that's had a lot of pressure, because the leopards are in this area are so smart. And I mentioned it earlier, the attention to detail. And how does that translate? Okay, using natural fiber instead of wire. Trail cameras that might not be positioned right or give off a sound or a glow. Lights on a trail camera that a deer might see. The height of the bait. You know, if it's too high, the leopard can't feed. If it's too low, the hyenas can get it. The sensor not being positioned right. All those little things. And the stuff that we did, I mean, the blind, you could not have seen that blind. I don't care. The camouflage of that thing, the way the guy set it up, it looked like an absolute natural bush. The trail leading in, they would coat the inside of the blind with these wool blankets so there was zero noise. The attention to detail was great, but it was still little things that tripped us up. And the same thing can happen when you're after these big mature whitetails. You've got to pay attention to every single detail. It's a controllable. These are things that you can control, and all of those that we can do exactly right. Your bow setup, we have beat that horse a million times. Testing all of your gear, familiar with it, shooting your equipment in different angles and real-world situations. Camera setups, are you camouflaging your cameras? Are you hiding them? Are you putting them high enough? How you're approaching your stand, where you hang your stand, the height of your stand, the cover around your stand. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. So I guess the point here, y'all wanted me to say that, right? Yeah, okay. The point here, as I wanted to share the story because it was such a special trip for me, and I can say that I am now pretty addicted to that. It was just so similar to what we love in chasing deer that I want to do it more and more and more. Obviously, it's a world away, 15, 16-hour flight, but I want to try to do more of that. And the beauty of it is you get to do it in the summer, and we can hunt the whitetail in the winter. So anyway, guys, that's the leopard story. And if there's anything to take away from it, it is when we get into whitetail season and we start looking at stand setups, we start looking at where we're going to put our cameras, be real cognizant of where and how and why you are doing everything that you are doing. Announcement for ICO before we sign off here. New camo pattern hits on Monday, this Monday, June 16th. And if you look really hard right now, there might be a leak somewhere around here. I'm not going to say where. Anything else, boys? As always, guys, we appreciate it. Questions, comments, send us an email, reach out to us on social media. We'll get us a guest on next week and probably get Adam Hayes back on. He has got a bear story that he did not connect on, but an absolute tank of a bear, like the biggest one they've ever seen, like miniature grizzly bear, brown bear. And the thing came in, he hunted him and hunted him and hunted him. He had killed a big one earlier in the season, like right at the opener, and he had hunted this bear. So they had trail camera pictures of him and hunted him. His last morning, the dang thing comes in, and there's a female, I guess, on the bait, and this big one comes in, and he's behind a tree. Adam's got 3 cameras running. I will let him tell the story, but long story short, ended up not presenting him with a shot, and it walked off, never to be seen again. But anyway, maybe we'll get Adam on, talk about that hunt, and talk whitetail. Boys, we appreciate it. Thank you for all you do, the support of the podcast. And Monday, 16th, check out Osseo Gear, release of the new camo pattern. And if I'm not mistaken, our pre-sale starts then too. Is that right? Pre-sale for Osseo. Appreciate the support, guys. Y'all have a good one.